lectures in the last 40 years. So we have brought many of the leading figures in every area of the Armenian world, from religious leaders to scholars, to artists, to photographers. So it's always a pleasure to share that with our audience. Tonight I'd like to thank the Armenian General Benevolent Union Greater Fresno Chapter for their participation and support of this evening. They are co-sponsors of this evening, and I would like to thank the current chairperson, Karun Boyajan. She's over here. Karun, please let's have a round of applause, and for all of her committee. Thank you. Tell you a little bit about our guest speaker. Hrair Hawk Khatcherian has been capturing pictures of Artsakh, Karabakh, which he shares with his readers in the new book. So this is the new book, but of course he's going to talk about many of his books as well. And he started his travels in 1988. And those of us that remember 1988 remember the earthquake year. And it was with his involvement and participation in various projects and activities in the diaspora that were related to the Karabakh Movement that got him on this path to begin to travel regularly to Artsakh from 1992 until today. And he has been traveling and studying all of that, and that's what you're going to hear in the lecture. I'll tell you a little bit about him. He's an internationally known, recognized, renowned photographer. Originally was born in Lebanon, but now lives in Montreal, Canada since 1984. As I mentioned, he's been documenting Armenian cultural heritage through photography and has presented exhibitions and lectures around the world. And his photographs have appeared in magazines, newspapers, books, and journals. He has traveled, this is amazing, traveled to Armenia over 150 times and has taken many risks to capture some of the images that you're going to see. Not only the places, monasteries, churches, fortresses, khachkars, but the people as well, the villages and the people of Armenia. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our special guest this evening, Hrair Hawk Khatcherian.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Barlow. Thank you for AGBU for supporting this event. I will not be speaking too much because I'll be speaking with the slides, actually, with the photographs. But first I'm going to give you like a 5-minute video to show you how I work. All these pictures, when you see published in a book, you think it's so easy. And there's Mark, also a photographer here. He knows what it means to capture the light, to capture the moment, to capture events. Just to give you an idea, I was in Isfahan last September. And on September 11th, I flew from Tehran to Yerevan. And the events exploded on September 13th, I think. So that you know, a photographer cannot enter Isfahan anymore. We cannot enter Hrair Hawk because it's been in blockade for almost 2 months now. So let's go. this was done by my assistant, Hrair Khatcherian. We've been working together for 10 years, and she's 30 years young. And we have been arrested many times by the Turkish soldiers. We've been fired at, we walked into landmines, etc., etc. So let's go into Artsakh now. That's the main topic today. I was born in Beirut, Lebanon in 1961, so I'm 61 years young and going strong. At school, I was very, very bad with studies because ever since I was born, I had this visual gift. My ears will not respond to words, and I could not read really good everything that was black and white because it didn't make sense to me. So eventually, I became a pilot here in Hayward, California in 1982 because I wanted to fly. And my nickname was given to me by a pen pal. We didn't have Instagram or Facebook then. So I'm really old school. And that nickname actually became the middle name. That's why Hawk is in my passport, in my on my driver's license, and everywhere. So it's not a Hawk in Guinea, we say it in French. Anyways, so at school I would not learn these topics because there were no pictures, there were no images. As you know right now, images speak a lot much more than words speak. So I can actually write history with my photography now. So for the next generation, it will be much easier to understand about our culture. That's why you see in all of my books have more pictures than words. So I didn't know anything about Artsakh at school. And as many of you probably, even those who were born in Armenia, knew very little about Artsakh because during the Soviet era, Artsakh was a privileged place. So not too many people could go unless if you had a special permit. So 1988, when the Soviet Union collapsed, you know the story, Armenia became independent, Azerbaijan became independent, and since the Armenian people of Artsakh were given by Stalin in 1920 to Azerbaijan, also Nakhchivan region, they wanted to make a referendum, and they did a referendum, and they wanted to secede from Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan started the pogroms and started the genocide, actually, the first phase in near Baku, Sumgait, etc. So the Armenians had no other choice but to defend themselves in Artsakh, and we lost a lot of young kids. More than 5,000 soldiers were killed in the first war. And when the earthquake happened, Armenia became turned down on a map, actually. So Artsakh also, the war had started. When I was photographing for the Gamma Press agency in Paris in Montreal, I was photographing the demonstration that the Armenians were holding in front of the Soviet consulate then. And I was asking the Armenian demonstrators, what is Karabakh that you're holding? I didn't know anything about Karabakh. They said it's an Armenian enclave where Armenians used to live for centuries. And I asked them, have you seen the land? They said no. Have you seen the people? They said no. I said, why are you here then? So I'm a curious person. So I said, I want to go and discover it for myself. And I did. In 1992, I left my wife and two daughters. Lori was 3 years young, Palik was 2 years young. And I didn't know what I was getting into. Even though I was born in Lebanon, I had witnessed the war in Lebanon, I didn't know what to expect when I reached Artsakh. So this is it. I start the image with a gentleman who's near Berzor, actually near Lachin. And this is a shot that I really enjoy a lot. It's taken with a Leica camera. And the gentleman is working on January the 1st. So for him, that January the 1st is just like another day. So is another day for the photographer who took this shot. I love working. This is a detailed work from the crucifixion of the western facade of Gandasar. You saw me climbing a ladder, you know, with the help of a local, with my cameras dangling. So Artsakh I published this during the pandemic. What you will see in red are all those regions that we lost or were given after the treaty of after we lost the war in 2020. So it's very easy to find those locations through those numbers. I did most of the design of the book, like the map of the flag of Artsakh. And this is the same gentleman that you saw on the cover. He said, "This is my village, Bertor." It's on the right side. And you see in the, over his shoulders a white building. That building is actually a church that the Azeris had tried to destroy before the war of 1988. These are the presidents of Artsakh up till the present one. You will have a little bit of introduction by Ruben Galchian about Artsakh, the history. The green used to be, all the orange that you see, including the green, used to be what the Armenians conquered during the first war of 1988-1994. But we lost all the orange territory, so what's left is only the green part right now. And then we have two main rivers in Artsakh, the Khatcherian and the Tartar rivers, and that's the Merav mountain range. The Merav mountain range separates Azerbaijan from Artsakh. So beyond those mountains are the Azeris. The flag was designed by Fatal. He was an Armenian from Vahe Fatal, was born in Syria, of Armenian origin, and he became very famous in the United States. Actually, if you Google his name, you will see that he was also a philanthropist at the end. So he designed the current flag of Artsakh. These are the two main rivers of Artsakh. I was lucky enough to fly over Artsakh with a helicopter donated by the Ministry of Defense of Armenia. These two lakes are taken it's the same spot, taken at 2007 and 2009. One is taken in May, the other one is taken in April. So before the snow melts completely. These territories were given to the Azeris. This is the same lake, and the Armenians used to harvest the land before seceding it. A gentleman by the name of Levon gave me this book that you see here on the right side. It's called Mountainous Karabakh, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't know this gentleman. During the war, the first war of 1992, he said, "Wait a minute," and he went inside and he brought me this book, and it's about the monuments of Artsakh. I didn't understand why he gave it to me. I hadn't photographed any churches yet, so I opened this book, went into the shelter in Marduni, and the boys, the soldiers laughed at me. They said, "Why are you going to the shelters?" Well, after midnight, they started shelling Marduni, and all those soldiers who were laughing came and joined me in the shelter, because I had some experience with the war in Lebanon. I knew they would shell at night. So I went through this book, and I wanted to start photographing the churches in that region. I noticed that there was a tree, well, it's an old tree, they said, of 2,000 and some odd years. And then I calculated how many years the book was published, and I added that number as well. So you will see in detail the number of that church. The top part that you see is taken by helicopter. That's Adam, or what was left of it. And this is the church that survived, actually, even after shelling by the Azeris. But this church also, with the Kranaget, which is on the left side, on the bottom, were also given to the Azeris. These are some of the drone shots that you see on the bottom right, and some of the artifacts that they had discovered from the 7th century churches at Dikranaget. And these are some of the details from Dikranaget. Hamlet Bedrosian was in charge of excavating the area. Amaras was the location where the first Armenian church was erected in Artsakh in the 4th century, and it was destroyed 3 times by the Seljuk, Mongols, and the Azeris. So the Armenians rebuilt them again and again. And it was the first school in the 5th century that taught Armenian, the Armenian alphabet discovered by Mesrop Mashtots. So this is the first school actually in Armenia that was built at this location. And Amaras was used as a customs office in the 1800s by the Soviets, or not the Soviets, at that time they were the Russians, and the Persians. So they used to come here and do all the customs trades at this point. And you can see that the damage is done by the mortar fire and shell fire at the church. So this is the Armenian alphabet on the right side, and it's very interesting that the Armenian alphabet is not only for pronunciation, for communication, but also for dating. A lot of Khachkars are dated by the Armenian alphabet. So A is 1, G is 100, Ra is 1000, etc. And then you add 551 to those letters, and you get today's date. This is Dadivank, and unfortunately today we cannot visit Dadivank because it was given to the Azeris after the war of 2020. In 1994, it was for the first time I photographed the church or the complex of Dadivank, and I also included some archival photographs that I have found from different institutions. And you see on the right side the reconstruction work that the Armenians did for Dadivank. And what's really interesting about the book is you will see on the left corner of each image a date when I took those images. So for the future generation, if they want to understand exactly when those images were taken, it's so easy now just by looking at those numbers on the far left corner. Dadivank had the tallest 2 Khachkars in the belfry, and they were taken to Echmiadzin after the war because we had to give it back to the Azeris. That was the deal. And what you see on the left side is the work that they have done on the left. Wait a minute, I have to go back a few seconds. Okay, you see the image on the far left, the bottom. It was taken in 2010. And 2016 it was, let me see. It was restored by a couple from Europe, Ara and another lady that you will see also in the book. So what the Armenians did is they took the plaster and they relocated it into Armenia. So those also were saved. So those are the 2 tallest Khachkars, and you see the sizes of the Khachkars with the models below. So these are some of the details of Dadivank, which dates back from the 13th century. The first monastery, or the first church that I photographed is on the far left corner, on the bottom, Yerishe Guish it's called. And during the war, that was my first actually Armenian church that I have photographed in my life. So that started the whole process of documenting all the Armenian churches around the globe. I'll tell you a little bit later about that. And then on top you will see the renovated portion of the church. I hate snakes. You cannot imagine how much I hate snakes. And last time I paid a visit to the monastery, there was a snake on top of the tree, right on top of my head. So I survived that poisonous snake as well. Indiana Jones or Indiana Hawk, whichever you want to call it. This beautiful monastery, which was a pilgrimage area, is located in the south, in Hadrut region. And what's really interesting is I published the book, my first book of Artsakh that you see on the far left top. That's the same lady I found 20 years later. So I located her from Hadrut, and then we made a pilgrimage to Gagarovank, the one that you see in the back. And that was it. That was the last pilgrimage that we did to this area. Zaven Sarkisyan was the director of the Museum of Parajanov in Yerevan, Armenia. The gentleman that you see on the far left bottom, and he's standing by the Artsakh River. This area also was captured, but it's the first area actually was captured by the Azeris. And Zaven Sarkisyan was instrumental in pushing me into photographing Armenian churches starting from 1992. So after I left Artsakh to Armenia, I met him, and we became friends until his death from cancer in 2020. This is Dizernavank, right at the entrance of Lachin, a little bit north of Lachin. This area was also captured, actually given to the Azeris. It's a 7th century monastery, and these were the local Armenians who lived there. You see the images of 1998 on the far left top and 2006 on the right side. And the image of the Armenians that you see is taken in 2010. A lot of monasteries were saved because they were in the mountains, in the forests. So it was very difficult to find these monasteries. Even though you see on the far left, the Khachkar was destroyed by the local Azeris at that, during the Soviet era. But the church itself was saved. We had to try twice with Zaven to find it. We couldn't. For the third time, we had to hire someone, a local, so that he can take us and discover that monastery. The monastery of Yerishe Arakel, it's really very interesting because you have 7 churches, one next to the other. And this area also is in the northern part of Karabakh, which was captured by the Azeris. This is another look of Yerishe Arakel monastery. Some of the details of that monastery. It dates from the 5th till 13th century. Again, this is Gadich monastery taken in 1999 and also in 2012. This was also captured by Azerbaijan. The Khachkar that you just saw, wait a minute, let me see. In this monastery, there used to be a Khachkar, which is this one on the far right. You see the details, and on the far left, it's exactly the same Khachkar, or actually the same artist who made these 2 Khachkars. One of them stayed at the monastery in Dadivank, and the other one is actually at Echmiadzin. It used to be at Echmiadzin even before the war. Unfortunately, you see a lot of graffiti inside the church, and most of them are from Armenians. Yeritz Mangans Monastery from 1691. Look at the place that they have chosen for the monasteries, and that's why they survive. You see where the church is, and the roads reaches that monastery alone. These are monasteries that we lost. One of them is in the south, Mokhrenis, dating from 6th and 7th century. The other one on the right side is Horegavank, near the Mardager region, and it dates from 1279. The Khachkars actually date from 1279. The churches are from even earlier on. Birri Yersi. Birri in Armenian means gobit, gosht, or rough, because it doesn't have a really beautiful architecture. That's why it's called Birri. And the only unique feature that you will see are the Khachkars that adorns the facades of the 3 monasteries. The Armenians have not given away the old tradition, the pagan traditions, and as you can see, we have animal offerings to the church up till now. This is the Khachkar, or actually the cross on the western facade of the most beautiful monastery in Artsakh. It's called Gandzasar, or the monastery, the jewel of the hill. And in order to photograph, for example, since it's located on the western facade, it's like the khashkars, which are facing west. So in order to photograph the details that you see all the chiseling or all the sculpture, you have to photograph it between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock when the sun is really hitting from high. If you wait until 4 o'clock, you will not see all these details because it will be flat. So it's very important to go back and many times in order to capture the right moment, and also to convince the priest so that they can help you with the heavy ladder, which is all metal. And not every priest is really friendly, so they don't like to work, so anyways. This is Gandasar in the winter, Gandasar in the summer, and also Gandasar with the archival photographs that I had taken from, if I'm not mistaken, the History Museum of Armenia. That's Father Hovhannes that you see from 2001 all the way to the late 2018 actually. And a lot of tourists actually went to see Gandasar. And what you see on the far left is a khachkar which was broken in two, and the top part was used as an altar piece. And then when Father Hovhannes took it back outside, they matched it together. And there's a secret inscription on the bottom. It says, the prince says to his kids, he says, I'm not taking anything with me from this planet. You will not be taking anything with you either. I think nothing has changed. But people still think that they're going to take something with them from this earthly planet. What's really interesting about Armenian manuscript is you have different styles. So one of the books that I'm preparing is going to be called Art and Faith, Origins of Illuminated Armenian Manuscript. And on this far right side, you will see that Gabriel, the archangel, is coming to give the good news to Mary. And she's supposed to be getting a kid who's going to be named Jesus. But since a lot of the locals did not have good education and stuff, so they had to really make a painting where to make it, to let the people understand that the angel is annunciating Mary that she'll be bearing the child, Jesus, which is on her lap already, but he's not supposed to be there. But for people to make a link between what's going to happen, they had to include Jesus on this manuscript, which is very rare, by the way, Barlow. Gandasar, the beautiful place, and also the Merav mountain range that you see in the background. My father's name is Hagop, and this place is the monastery of Hagopavank, dating from the 9th century. These are some of the churches that used to be in the Kelbajar region, which were also relinquished, and you have one of them dates back from 1279, the other one dates back, let me see, 1274. So 13th century Armenians were already in that region. And why do the Azerbaijanis destroy everything that is Armenian? Because they don't have any mosques in that region. They don't have anything to prove that they were there for centuries. So what's the best thing to do? Is to destroy the Armenian heritage, the Armenian inscriptions, the Armenian churches, the Armenian khachkars, like they did in Nakhichevan. These are the double rainbows that I had photographed, and it was symbolic for me. It's the link between Armenia and Artsakh, no matter what. A very interesting inscription in the forest of Lachin, inscriptions where we have a proof that there was a connection between Cilicia and the kings or the princes of Artsakh, which is very interesting. We had to hike about 5 miles in the woods, and we had to have someone who knew the location, or else we would have been lost. You see the location on the far left? That's how we had to go and find this place. And these are some of the khachkars in that area. The swastika, it's a symbol of eternity, etc. And we, as a photographer, might know that we have sometimes to carry reflectors, because in the forest, the sun does not hit the lights where you want it. So we have to deflect the light, reflect it, and get these images, or else you will not get any details. So I have to carry a lot of equipment. You see some of the equipment that I have in the back here, and not counting the jacket that I'm wearing. And I also take measurements. A lot of professors, by the way, they don't take the measurements. Even some of the professors who are in charge of khachkars in Armenia don't even take the measurements. So I was a little bit more than a photographer, taking all the measurements. And these khachkars also were taken to Yerevan, to Armenia, because this entire area was given. Look at the unique khachkar and Mary and Jesus. Jesus is usually in the palms, in the hands of Mary. She's holding him. But since Jesus is a little bit grown, for the Artsakh people, he had to stand and get milk from her breast. So it's really very unique. And this khachkar was saved, and it's in Armenia now. I would say this is an Arshid painting, but actually it's the earth that is making it. When the snow melts, we have these puddles, puddles is dogs, right? Puddles. Puddles that you see, which is really amazing. And the crew, the helicopter crew, were amazing also. I had flown 8 times over Artsakh and Armenia. Narek, my friend, and when his mother passed away, his brothers donated housings for the locals. Unfortunately, Kanaravan was also given to the Azeris. This is Shushi, and that's Narek also on the far left. You see Naregatsi Art Institute, probably you have heard about his work. He has also Naregatsi Art Institute in Yerevan. And on the far top right side is my friend Haytuk Shamlian from Montreal and his family. They used to organize from 2005 to 2019, they opened and operated Aram Manukian summer camp. So you can imagine what happened to my friend's feelings after he heard about losing Shushi. Fortunately, some of the items that you see here from Shushi were saved because this used to belong to as a private collector. So the gentleman was smart enough to get them out during just before the ceasefire. But unfortunately, the government of Artsakh was not fast enough to retrieve the rest of the museums from Shushi, and this stayed behind. Also this one. And this is a view from Shushi. It's below Shushi. The Zontik, we call it in Russian, it means umbrella. It was a very special hiking place. Unfortunately, Ganacham was destroyed when they entered, and Gazanchecho Church has been converted. I mean, they're converting it into a mosque right now. Some of the images from 1992, for the first time when I entered Gazanchecho Church. Some of the weddings that I photographed there, my friends, at 2009 and 2016. The carpets of Artsakh. Zakar Keshishian from Lebanon, the gentleman that you see on the far bottom left, he gave the children a choir. So he, from how many years? Let me see. From 1992 all the way to 2020. Now he's continuing his work in Stepanakert. Of course, if they allow him to enter. As you know, it's in Block A right now. The gentleman that gave me the book is the right gentleman who's holding the carpet on top. And I asked the owner of these carpets to lay all the carpets that he had on the floor. And I photographed these carpets from the top of the hotel. And what's really interesting is the shadows of the carriers. The two boys that were helping me get that shot. This is Shushi, and Karindak is the village is on the right side. A very interesting orchid, which resembles a female bee to attract the male bees for pollination. And it's about 4 inches high. And you don't really see them. You trample them, you go over them because they're so tiny. But with a macro lens, this is what you get. Some of the flora and fauna in Artsakh. We are our mountains, the symbol of Artsakh. Artists from Artsakh. Stepanakert in 2012. Stepanakert, the view from Shushi. This is what the Azeris are looking right now. They can spot an ant actually from Shushi. And that's the mountain Merav range on top. Some of the items from the museum. Some of the first publications which started in 1772. No, actually in 1828, 1829, and 1874. Mardagir, the northern part of Artsakh. What's really annoying is we have a 1751 fortress. Instead of building the road like 10 feet from this side, they had to cut it. You know, I don't understand the logic behind it. This is actually the entrance of Lachin. The corridor that they have shut down, this is it. This is the only vein into Artsakh from Armenia. In summertime and in the wintertime. Some of the villages in Artsakh, you have the GPS coordinates with the map in the bottom. And this is what they're trying to do. You know, those eco demonstrations that they're having right now. They're saying the Armenians are destroying the landscape, etc. Some of the Khachkars from Artsakh and the boys. You see how high the Khachkar is. Some of the traditional drinks from Artsakh. You see the mulberry drinks, the vodka, mulberry vodka, the Jingalo huts, and also the bread. Some of the people of Artsakh that I have known. And of course, the soldiers. It's really hard to imagine that probably the majority of the soldiers that you see here are dead. It's a similar attack airplane that the Turkish F-16 shot down during the war. You see, this is an Armenian fighter jet, a bomber jet actually. The first thing that the Azeris did is destroy the anti-aircraft defense system. So these were the anti-aircraft system, and those shots that you see are from Adam, the Armenian soldiers. I have ventured so close that we could hear the Azeris. I mean, they were like basically 100 feet away. Qatar wine, if you have tasted one of these wines, it's excellent wine. And the gentleman that you see on the far left, on top, is the same gentleman that you see below that image. I had photographed him in 1992, and 20 years later he remembered me. He said, "Aren't you Hawk who came and photographed during the war of 1992? With his brother, they were responsible for Qatar wine." Some of the soldiers will defend the mountain range. This is from the first floor, 1992. Even the women that you see on top, the lady in the middle, her husband was slaughtered in Baku. from one of their neighbors, Azeri neighbors, in front of her child and in front of her. So she had to escape, and she came to Shushi to avenge her husband's death. These are some of the boys. Most of them have also died for the first war. And the jeep that you see on the left, for 3 weeks with Merush Mosian, I was traveling in that jeep. And that jeep was always boiling. And I would tell him, every 200 feet you had to pour more water in the radiator. And I would say, Merush, if we reach Marduni, are we going to get a new jeep? Because, you know, from Canada, you think that if something is broken or it's about to, stand still, you change it. Actually, 21 days, we traveled in that jeep, and at the end he said, do you have the same opinion about this jeep? So he had to fight with that jeep, pouring water into the radiator. Unfortunately, while I was getting cancer treatment in Canada of lung cancer, his jeep actually blew up on a landmine. And the gentleman that you see on the right, they're holding a blanket. We were going south towards Dog, and he was coming north from the south. So we heard the bang, a loud bang. 10 minutes later we were there, and we witnessed what had happened. If we had made it like 15 minutes sooner, our car would have blown up. I said, this gentleman probably, they'll make a tourniquet and they'll save him, they'll cut his leg, and that's it, he will survive. Actually, the ambulance did not arrive on time, and the tourniquet did not help, and he died in front of our eyes. After this shot, I did not take any more pictures of the war. I couldn't. These are some of the boys or the soldiers who started the revolution in Do with handmade weapons. That's how they won the first war, by capturing Azeri weapons and using them against them. You see in the bottom image an operation where there's no hygiene, because they were bombarding Stepanakert non-stop. So they were working in non-hygiene situations. The orange is what we used to have, the green is what we have right now. The orange we lost, and it's my warning for the bottom image. If we do not cooperate together, if we do not become one nation, we'll be losing that piece of land as well. Not a lot of manuscripts have survived, because like the war that that we're witnessing today and we witnessed in 1992, all the fighting armies coming from the north or from the east, that they had to cross to Artsakh. And they plundered everything that they could find along the way. So some of the images that you see on the left side, they don't exist anymore because they destroyed the churches completely. These are some of the manuscripts that have survived. This is Nicole Duman's house, and it's also a museum, a revolutionary. Unfortunately, we were not able to take full advantage of everything that we had in our possession. The images that you see is a collection of churches that were abandoned. Even the animals were inside those churches, even during the period where those churches were under our control. And like the gentleman that you see with no hand, it was invaded, invalidated, plundered, desecrated, and abandoned. So we have to take some of the blame as well, because we did not take full credit to what we had. We did not appreciate all the blood that we lost, and we did not rise from the ashes. Some of the images from Artsakh as well, as if it's the far west. 1992, 1994. More than 6,700 soldiers died. It's titled On the Road Again. My second book about Artsakh. The girl that you see is a refugee from Mardagir, and look at her smile. Even though she's a refugee, she always kept her smile. Even today, with all the blockade, the Armenians are still smiling. And look at her necklace. Paper clips. That's what she had. The shot on the right side is called Between War and Peace because it's taken in Marduni, and the Azerbaijanis were right behind this tree. And on this side is the Armenian side. That's why it's titled Between War and Peace. And the other one on the left is called Casting Shadows. It's mulberry trees. They cut it so that it grows stronger for the summer. And while I was taking that image, an Armenian who was accompanying me said, "What do you see in that image? How can I explain that it's a masterpiece? You know, they see it every day. For them, it's something that is natural. But to capture that kind of image is to wait for the light, to wait for those animals to cross the right path and capture it. The Khachkar and the tree is called Life and Death in Harmony because Khachkar is dedicated to death and the tree is life. So they're hugging each other. Life and death are always in harmony. The lady on the right side is from Mardagir. She had lost her husband, and the pair of shoes that you see next to her on the right side is her husband's. She never got rid of them. She always sits there and remembers her husband. Lucy was exiled from Shahumyan in the First War in 1988, and she was living in Karabakh region. And she was so soft-spoken. She never cursed the Azeris. It was amazing, this lady. And Ray of Light, Ray of Hope is an old man going towards the altar to pray. And I was going to tell him, wait, I'm trying to photograph the light. I said, why should I let the man from going to his prayers? So I let him go to his prayers without saying anything. While he was crossing the light, I said, dummy, it's right time to press the shutter. So I pressed the shutter. That's when I thought about this title, Ray of Light, Ray of Hope. I think we should always have that ray of hope. If we don't have that hope, life is not meaningful. Samuel Garabedian, the gentleman on the far left, on top, before 1988, he was traveling inside Azerbaijan, and he was risking his life documenting every Khachkar, every inscription in that region. He was imprisoned many times, he was beaten, and the same gentleman next to him actually, with the glasses, with black hair, that's him. He lost his hair after being tortured in Azerbaijan. Some of the Armenians from the diaspora also participated in the war. In the first war in 1993, the gentleman that you see, those two gentlemen that are holding an image, he was an Armenian from Java, from Georgia, and he martyred in the first war. And the singer next to him, he was from Lebanon, and he was living in Armenia. And when the call of fighting came, he went to Artsakh and he was martyred as well. The facing page, Madaris, we lost this area also. Some of the Khachkars. This is really interesting. I went to northern Iran 3 trips. In 1997, the bottom left and top. In 2003 and in 2006. And finally, you will see the difference between the images. It's the same area. 4,000 Khachkars used to be in this area. 4,000 Armenian Khachkars in Nakhichevan. They destroyed it completely. And United Nations did nothing. So why are you surprised that they're not doing anything now? It's the same thing happening again and again. On the right side, I'm making a parallel. These are all cemeteries belonging to the Azeris. The Armenians did not destroy them. The mosque that you see, the Armenians did not destroy them in Shushi. Actually, they renovated them. Some of the maps that dates from different era. That's the corridor that is blocked between Armenia and Artsakh. And these are some of the books that I have published. And I finished with what Leonardo da Vinci has said. There are three classes of people: those who see when you show them, those who do not see. So it's up to you to decide which one you are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we're going to open it up for questions. If you have questions or about his journeys, it's a wonderful